Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
I'm always ready for rapid fire, baby. Let's go.
Woo! Do it. Let's do it. So which of these duos are you most confident in?
This is a complicated question. I don't know where you came up with this. I had to read it like 3 times just to make sure I understood what was happening.
All right. So you've got the combination, Jordan Botelho and Junior Tuihalamaka in for Isaiah Foskey now. Mitchell Evans and Holden Staes, the 2 tight ends for Michael Mayer, or Andrew Kristofic and Billy Schrauth, replacing the 2 guards, Jarrett Patterson and Josh Lugg. So which of those 3 duos are you most confident in?
So there's shakiness with all 3 of these duos, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like from strictly an athletic standpoint, right? It's Jordan Botelho and Junior Tuihalamaka. Like I feel like those 2 can make some crazy waves at Vyper this year. Now, replacing Isaiah Foskey is not going to be easy. He was a high round 2 pick for the Saints. You know, he was a stat stuffer. I mean, he did all of those things, right? But I think those guys are going to pick up right where he left off. Replacing Michael Mayer, even in the aggregate with both of those guys, it's never going to happen. Like, I just don't see it. Like, Mitchell Evans is a good player. Holden Staes is a good player. They're not Michael Mayer. So,
and we're not including Eli Raritan because he's not healthy, right?
And that's fair.
That's why he's not in there.
You can put anybody you want in that duo, and it does not matter. They're not going to equal. And I don't want them to equal what Michael Mayer did, because that means that you have a very one-dimensional offense. I don't want that, right? So I'm not as confident in those 2, and that's okay, right? When it comes to the guards, this is the interesting one, because Billy Schrauth's ceiling is very high. Mm-hmm. Andrew Kristofic's floor is really high, in my opinion. I don't think his ceiling's very high, but I don't feel like he's going to make a bunch of mistakes. I think he's just going to be steady Eddie the whole way through. You could compare him to Josh Lugg, and I think that would be appropriate, right? I think that would be fairly appropriate in this particular conversation. In no reality am I going to say that a redshirt freshman Billy Schrauth is the same as a 5th-year senior Jarrett Patterson. Like, I can't. True. I can't go there. Now, maybe when Billy is a 5th-year senior or 4th-year senior or whatever, he surpasses Jarrett Patterson. But I can't go there for this year. So in this particular question, I'm more confident in the duo of Jordan and Junior.
I'm with you. I'm right, because, like, you know, just to pick up where you left off there, in no world, even in the aggregate, is Mitchell Evans, Holden Staes, if you want to throw Raritan in there if he's healthy, none of them are going to come close to the production that Michael Mayer had. You know, like all 3, you know, all 3 or 4, however many, none of them are going to add up to 67 catches and over 800 yards, I don't think.
And we don't want them to. Like, they don't need to be a tight end, like, based offense.
Exactly. And I think, yeah, exactly. And that's with the quarterback that they have. We expect this to be a more downfield offense to begin with. Right? Do I think that they can all do their jobs and be good tight ends? Yeah, but I'm not confident that they're going to come close to that. And you make great points about, you know, like, as good as Billy Schrauth is, are you really expecting him to be as good as a 50-year guy who, you know, just got drafted last year? And Kristofic, I think he's going to be solid as well, but Josh Lugg had been around for a little bit as well, you know, and had maybe a little bit of an underrated season. Just got signed, I saw after the weekend, by your Bears, by the way. So I agree. Like, even when you've got the program's all-time sack leader and you're replacing 11 sacks, I think that those 2 guys, Botelho and Tuihalamaka, and then, you know, even throw Burnham in behind them as well. Like, I think that group is really going to excel at that Vyper defensive end. And we were talking about the disruption up front. That's a big part of where it's going to come from, I think, is what's going on over there. You know, and especially when you've got some of those interior guys who you talked about who have upped their level of play as well. That's going to do nothing but help those edge guys. It's going to help everybody. It helps out the entire defense when you get more from that nose and that 3 technique as well in the middle there. So absolutely. They could be electric. And somebody mentioned you add Burnham in there. I can't remember if you mentioned him or not, but you had him
as the third one. I thought you did. I mean, I think that position could be dynamic. You know, it's going to be, you know, you talk about sack numbers and tackles for loss. I mean, I think a lot of that's going to come from that side for sure.
I agree. All right, I've got one comment from Marcus Freeman from after the blue gold game that we never really got to, and I've been kind of sitting on it because we've had so much other stuff going on with the transfer portal and everything else, obviously, these last couple of weeks. So here's Marcus Freeman on whether or not he would change the format of the blue gold game.
You know, as far as the format of the blue gold game, you know, there's still an element of you know, it's televised nationally. You know, every year you're going to do some things differently schematically. And there's a part of that where you want to keep that in-house. You want to keep that in-house and not just show everything you're going to do. I want to see success on both sides of the ball. But we know that the jersey scrimmage is really for that. Jersey scrimmage is for game planning. Like that's put your best out on the field. Whereas the spring game is, I want to get everybody a chance to play. Not everybody gets a chance to play at Notre Dame Stadium or will ever get the opportunity to play in a meaningful game. And so it's a great opportunity to give the guys that you're counting on a chance to go out there and compete for a little bit, but also give the guys that might not ever step on that field in a meaningful game an opportunity to go out there and play in a real Notre Dame uniform in a spring game. And so I wouldn't change. I like it. I like what it provides for your team. I like what it provides for recruiting and what it provides for your fans.
All right, so there you go, Vince. The format of the blue gold game. Are you good with it, or is there something different you would want to see?
I mean, I agree with what he says. I think it's a great opportunity to get some walk-ons in and you know, because it doesn't matter. Like, it matters to them. Like, I would love to strap it up during a blue gold game and go out and play 20 years ago, obviously.
Well, I was going to say, they sell those fantasy camp things for you know, people who would love to do that, right?
I don't have $5,000 to plop down on a week's worth of fantasy, but anyway, I do like it. I think it's fine. I don't need to see another practice. Now, I would love to be a fly on the wall to the jersey scrimmage. Absolutely, I want to see that. But at the same time, they're not going to give us in the blue gold game the jersey scrimmage. That will never happen. And if anybody thinks it's going to happen, you know, they just need to understand that's never going to happen. So what's the next best thing? Kind of a pseudo game where it's basically like we're in the parking lot picking teams and they go out and play.
Yeah. I mean, it's really it's your culmination of spring. Whether or not anyone really gets anything out of it is irrelevant, is what he's saying, because everything that's going to be relevant happens a week before in that jersey scrimmage. And like you said, I mean, that's what we would like to see. Like, at the very least, you know, we're not going to talk about X's and O's and all that stuff. We're going to talk about player performances and unit performances and stuff like that. You know, like, that's what, you know, whether there's a camera there or not, which there's never going to be for that jersey scrimmage. That's what we would like to see. So we have more to base, you know, our opinions on. But what happens? You get a vanilla blue gold game and everyone bases their opinions on that anyway, because that's what everyone wants to see. But I completely agree with all, you know, everything that he's saying. It's like, you're not going to change it because it's going to be on TV. Everyone's going to see it. There's always going to be some certain strategy that's going to be left out. So I mean, the only thing that you could do is make it ones versus ones, twos versus twos. So at least you have, you know, the same level of guys going up against each other, and then you make your substitutions later on. That's really the only potential change. But because of the fact of all, you know, all the other things, all the other factors that he talked about, he's not going to change it. I guess I don't blame him.
Yeah, I mean, in the one versus one, yes, you're going to get more competition, and I get all that, but that's pretty much what they've been doing all spring. It's fun to mix it up for the guys. Like, they don't want to keep hitting the same guys that they've been hitting all spring. Like, it's something different, and they got some buy-in, you know, picking the teams, and, like, it's fun. Like, it's that, you know, it's when you go and have a 3-on-3 basketball tournament at football practice. You know what I mean? It's like, this is fun. So I have no problem with it. And at the end of the day, it's the last practice. You got out of there without any injuries.
Yep.
Check for for good.
It's all that matters, right?
Right.
Yep.
Seriously.
Fill in the blank. It's blank that NBC's first Big Ten Saturday night primetime game is going to be Penn State versus West Virginia on September 2nd.
I should have looked up what the other options were for the Big Ten night game or whatever that was going to be.
Not a lot.
I'm guessing there's not a lot. Yeah, exactly.
That first weekend.
That's what I figured. So this is probably the best that they're able to find for that particular slot. Okay. I mean, it's not the Rich Rod, West Virginia that, is lighting up the scoreboard or anything like that. But there's a lot of people that want to see what this Penn State offense is going to be able to do. And I think that's why people are going to tune in to this game, because people think Penn State's going to be really, really good. Preseason top 10 team. They think the offense is going to be solid. Like, that's why people are going to tune in, myself included, to see if Penn State's the real deal. Now, you're not going to be able to tell necessarily because they're playing West Virginia, but let's see what they can do offensively.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the official week 1, September 2nd, because remember, Notre Dame is playing week 0 this year in that game in Ireland. So this will be the bookend, or, the back end of the NBC doubleheader that day, because you'll have Notre Dame and Tennessee State on TV earlier that day. So you get Notre Dame, Tennessee State, and then you get Penn State, West Virginia. And remember, all the best games typically are still going to go to the big noon kickoff. Like, this is about, even though it's an interconference matchup, Penn State, West Virginia, this is about the level, I think, of what you're going to see in a lot of these NBC Saturday night games throughout the season. So
does that mean it's not going to be on Peacock? Because I figured that was the game that was headed to Peacock.
Which one is that?
The Tennessee State game.
Well, we don't know that. We don't know that
right.
for sure. I'm just saying
right.
Yeah, obviously I'm assuming that there will actually be an NBC doubleheader that day. But
I mean, it would be
might
smart.
be a big assumption. I don't know.
It would be smart if NBC did that, though, to lead into their first primetime type. You know what I mean?
You would think they would.
Not their first primetime game, but their first Big Ten primetime game, right?
Yeah, exactly. You would think that they would want Notre Dame on, even if it's a stinker of a game earlier in the afternoon, since this will be their first opportunity to put a doubleheader.
Right.
2 college games on the same day.
How can you not?
They're going to get a lot.
Yeah. How can you not parlay the eyeballs that you're going to get from the Notre Dame game to that night game? I mean, it'd be silly not to, but it's NBC, so it'll probably be on Peacock.
Speaking of football, Paul Burmeister, who is the Notre Dame football radio play-by-play announcer, he's worked for NBC Sports for several years now. He called the USFL game on NBC yesterday. Scale of 1 to 10. How big is the difference between Burmeister and the current Notre Dame NBC play-by-play announcer, Jac Collinsworth?
7,256. Like, it's not even close. It was, look, say what you want to about Burmeister or whatever. I think he does a really good job. He was obviously in TV before he was in radio, but I think he does a good job on the radio side as well. Way better than the guy that was in the booth before him, in the radio booth before him. Who was that, by the way? Who was the radio guy before? Thank you.
John Kristofic came after Tony Roberts.
Terrible, especially taking over for Tony Roberts. Cricky never knew the numbers, the name. Like, it was awful. Yeah. Burmeister is a professional, and he sounds professional. He clearly does his homework. He, references talking to the guys before the game. And this is a USFL game where nobody knows who anybody is. And he has backstories on guys, and he put a leash on whoever his color guy was and just brought him along. And he was setting him up, and he was doing all the things that a good play-by-play guy does. And it was music to my ears.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, it's like the difference between Vin Scully and like some single A announcer who's still trying to work his way up the ladder, because that's basically the experience. Not quite. Maybe there's a little bit more disparity in experience there when you're talking about Vince Scully, but I was really impressed. Like, I've heard Burmeister on the radio before, and sometimes when you see some of those highlights and stuff like that they put out, you get some of his calls, super, like
right.
matched up with, with the video and stuff like that. And like, he sounds like a broadcast professional, like the kind that you would want representing a national brand on a national TV broadcast network. And that is like, if I was, and again, this is, I don't want it to seem like I'm like taking shots at Jac Collinsworth or whatever, but the guy is just inexperienced.
Yes.
We've talked about it before. It's one thing if you want to talk about, because of the connection that he's got two connections. He's got one because he's a Notre Dame alum. He's got two because he's the son of Chris Collinsworth. It's one thing if you have those connections and you're good enough to do the job, then it's not a big deal. But he obviously is not good enough to do the job on the stage that he is doing it on. Paul Burmeister is. And I can't, for the love of me, figure out like why, when you've got a guy who's already connected, both to Notre Dame and to NBC, why he's not the guy in that seat.
Seriously. And he's filled in a few different times too. Like, it's been right there in front of him. Like, here it is. He can do it,
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this the other day when you're like, hey, turn on the USFL game. And, Jac Collinsworth, yes, he's got the name recognition, but I think people forget that his dad's a color guy. Jac's trying to be a play-by-play guy.
Mm-hmm.
Those are two completely different things. Like, I feel like Jac could be a pretty decent color guy. He's been around the game, probably understands the game. He could probably be a pretty decent color guy if you stuck him with a professional play-by-play guy, right? His dad's not a play-by-play guy. It's just, I don't know. It just bothers me that he gets to sit in the bird dog seat of play-by-play for NBC just because his dad's a pretty decent color guy, which is completely different.
Well, and again, I wouldn't overlook the Notre Dame connection either.
Well, that's true.
I don't think it's just because of his dad. I think that Notre Dame connection, Notre Dame they like having their alums in those seats.
There's different ways you can do it, though, in my opinion.
And a Notre Dame alum calling the blue gold game on peak.
Right. And
like, you're going to see more of that.
You've got a Notre Dame alum calling.
It's because of this program that they've got now. The podcast program over there.
I would very simply just flip the two teams from radio and TV. Just flip them. Now, the radio broadcast would be terrible, and I get that, but just flip them. You've got your Notre Dame guy as the color guy. You've got Burmeister, who's a professional doing play-by-play. Yeah. Just flip them.
I wouldn't even flip them. I think that they would probably put Simeone in the radio seat if Burmeister got the TV.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. Yeah.
But the balance would still be an upgrade in that case.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Bernie says that Jac has the opportunity of a lifetime as he'll get to call an undefeated Irish season and Heisman winner. Okay.
Bernie is the most optimistic person I've ever met.
I know.
Man. See, I agree with this right here. Decaf 18, Sean Stiers for radio. Sign him up.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen either, because
it's probably not, but that doesn't matter.
From the right place.
Yeah, well,
No, I really think that matters with this, since they've, started up this broadcast program here in recent years. I think that matters a lot, and I think
it does.
That plays into a lot of this stuff as well.
We'll just send in a couple of our high school games, and they can.
There you go.
Like, hey, this is a lot better than what you got.
There are a couple NFL guys who, this has been a while back, not that long ago, like, within the span of my broadcasting career, but there have been a couple NFL guys who basically had, because of connections, like high school play-by-play was the extent of their experience. They ended up calling NFL games on the radio.
Just saying.
Yeah. Fill in the blank. It's blank that the Chicago Bears are moving forward with breaking ground on what'll be a $5 billion project to build their new dome stadium in the Arlington Park suburbs.
It's about time. It's about time. I am normally a guy who is all about the history and the tradition and all of those things. And I realize that Soldier Field is one of those things. But the history and tradition went out the window when they did the renovation, in my opinion, because it was just such a poor job on the renovation and the way they did it and the way that it looks and all of those different things. I was very disappointed in the renovation. And I will also say, from a selfish standpoint, I'm a Bears fan, I'm a Cubs fan. I love everything about Wrigley Field, but it's old, right? I mean, and they've put up the jumbotrons and they've done all of those things, and that's awesome. And but it's an old stadium, and that's part of the appeal, and that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these nice stadiums, like the one in Vegas, the one in LA, you want to talk baseball, you can talk about Milwaukee, all of these really nice stadiums. Chicago deserves a nice stadium. The cell's a dump. Wrigley Field is older, but it has the charm. They ruined Soldier Field, and it's old. That's a double whammy. Like, they deserve a state-of-the-art field, and I'm glad they're going to get one.
And look, Buffalo is finally going to get their dome. There are other, I'd be shocked if, within 20 years, if 90% of the NFL stadiums aren't dome stadiums.
Yeah.
I think, because one, in a colder weather city, they've got a chance to they'll host a Super Bowl at some point.
Yes.
After they build this, and they will also be able to host Final Fours. Those will both be huge revenue generators for, it obviously won't be exclusively for the city of Chicago, but it'll be for for the Chicagoland area. They'll be able to host events that they're not able to host right now. And
absolutely,
I saw these artist renderings of this thing, and it's not just the stadium that's going to be $5 billion. It's that's only half of this. There's going to be a whole, I think they're calling it the Arlington Park's Village or something like that out and around. There's going to be all kinds of stuff around it. It sounds like it's going to be really nice. And it's, like you said, look what Chicago has had in terms of facilities forever. Like the United Center is the newest thing that they've got,
And that was in the mid-90s.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was in the mid-90s.
I think it's a great opportunity for them. I know a lot of people are, kind of, pushing and pulling again. The city of Chicago obviously wants to keep it because of the tax revenue and all that different kind of stuff. But I think it's going to be really good for, the entire Chicagoland when it's all said and done.
Absolutely. I'm excited. Notre Dame's going to play a game in there, so we'll be able to go. We'll be able to check it out.
That either. It'll just take us a little bit longer to get there.
That's okay. That's okay. You got to go north to the suburbs. All right, fine. We'll do it.
Mm-hmm. So there's a recent growing trend in Major League Baseball of players celebrating their home runs. Did you see the Fernando Tatis Jr. celebration?
I've seen a lot of the celebrations this year, but yes, I have seen that one.
Had a sombrero, and he was dancing after homering off Clayton Kershaw. And, of course, a lot of the old guard, old school people say the antics are too much. So where do you stand on all this current celebration that's going on, especially the stuff, like I'm talking about with Tatis and the dancing and the sombrero and stuff like that?
So you and I are both baseball guys. I am a traditionalist to a degree as far as you hit a home run, don't show up the pitcher, get around the bases, do your thing. Once you're in the dugout though, and that's where all this is taking place. Once you're in the dugout, man, you do you. I have no problem with guys celebrating with their teammates in the dugouts. I have no problem with that. I think it's fun. I think it's exciting. I think it's cool. And I mean, let's be honest, baseball could use a shot of cool, right? Or a shot of excitement at times. Right. Games are going faster. There's more stolen bases. The rule changes have actually worked. I think overall, there's been some nitpicking here and there, but I think it's worked overall. Once you get in the dugout, man, have some fun. I have no problem with it.
And that's like you said, it's not like they're out in front of the dugout doing all this stuff. They're doing it with their teammates. And if a pitcher, I realized that 30 years ago, like you didn't even have to do a dance for a pitcher to take exception. You know, like there were pitchers like in the 80s, you know, and before, you know, 80s and you know, back into the, you know, really old school, like 70s, 60s, whatever, who like if he gave up a home run, he was going to drill the next pitcher or the next batter with fastball just because, you know, because he was ticked off, you know. Now that doesn't happen anymore. Like Anthony said, you don't want the celebration. Don't give up the home run. And you want a younger crowd to get excited about baseball. You don't want it all to come down to that, like every decision that you make, but there's just too much of these, you know, unwritten rules, old school, you know, all this different stuff. Have some fun. You're playing a kid's game. You should be able to have some fun playing a kid's game. Again, as long as you're not throwing it in the opponent's face, you're doing it with your teammates, you're having fun with it, which is what most of these things are. I've got no problem with it at all.
Yeah, I mean, they're already in the dugout. They usually put on whatever the paraphernalia is once they're down in the dugout, and then they go across the dugout with their teammates. Okay. Awesome. That's, you know, I'd be all about like the team coming out and meeting the guy at home plate like we always do at the high school level. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I have no problem with celebrating a home run as long as it's not like in your face as he's running around the bases, like pointing at the pitcher, you know, being a jerk. Like, but like I think Jesse is the one that retweeted. We're talking about Twitter, right? Jesse, I think, retweeted. There was one of the baseball players, I can't remember with a team or whatever. He stopped at third base and like made some sort of a gesture after he hit a home run, like to the crowd. And, you know, did like a salute or something like that. And the next time he got up, he got drilled. Yeah, you get drilled for that. And I have no problem with that. You do the crime, you do the time. Like that's totally fine by me.
Yeah.
If he does whatever in the dugout, peace be with you.
Yeah. When you're on the bases, that's where you got to kind of watch your stuff.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Exactly. By the way, Cardinals coming back to Wrigley tonight. There's all this stuff going on with Wilson Contreras.
Yeah, there is.
And, you know, they're talking about moving him to the outfield. Now, they're not going to move him to the outfield. But my question, how should fans greet Wilson Contreras when he comes to the plate for the first time tonight? I saw a tweet about this today. The guy said, PSA, Cubs fans at Wrigley tonight. When Wilson comes to the plate, do nothing. Act like he's a rookie you've never heard of. That's the true troll job. Pass it on.
No. First of all, I'm not trolling him. Okay. He was a very important part of what the Cubs did with their success, winning the World Series in 2016 and being successful. It is not his fault that the Cubs would not sign him to a longer term deal. He went for the money and it happened to be St. Louis. Okay, fine. I get it. Was I happy he went to St. Louis? No. If I'm at Wrigley Field and he comes up to the plate, I'm standing up and I'm giving him a standing ovation because
do what the Dodgers did to Cody Bellinger. Give him the standing O and then hope the pitch
on the screen
expires and it's a strike.
Right. Right. I mean, they did with Cody Bellinger, they did like a video, little montage, like the whole that is what they should do for him. I'm sorry. He was a huge part of that Cubs team, a huge part, and he deserves that recognition. He does.
This is like, you know, obviously someone who's a fan, and you know, look, these are professional athletes, and like you said,
right.
Look at the Cubs' track record. They didn't re-sign anyone,
right?
With the exception of Kyle Hendricks. You know, it's like that's the only guy that got a new contract out of that whole core group of guys. Everyone else is gone. Why should you take it out on the player because the team didn't want to re-sign him? It's modern professional sports. Like the guys have a right to go out and make a living and go to another team. He got the best offer from the Cardinals, obviously. So.
And I have no problem with that. Like Irish Shytown says, Vince, cheer him until he gets a homer and then boo him and throw it back. 100%. I would absolutely do that. And Father David Penny says, standing O as a thank you and then cheer like crazy when he gets out. Yes, absolutely. What? And it's only his first at bat. His first at bat, he gets the standing O. His second at bat, boo! Like I have no problem with that.
That's right. That's exactly
because he's a Cardinal now. But I'm going to give him
much more complicated.
Yeah, exactly. You can still appreciate him for what he did.
And it's like, I remember when Jason Hayward, signed with the Cubs after that year that he had in St. Louis, there were a lot of Cardinals fans who were ticked off about that as well. It's like, well, one, he wasn't in St. Louis that long. It's
right.
Rivals and all that stuff. I guess you've got sort of that faction who thinks that,
sure,
the players owe him something.
And it's not like it used to be. You know what I mean? When a guy was with the same team,
well, that's the thing.
Career,
you just like these rivalries. Like the only time they really get heated, like some of them are a little bit more typically, like if the Cardinals and Cubs were both as good as the Dodgers and Padres right now, it might be a little bit like, again, like going back to that Padres Dodgers, it's like there's been such great atmosphere, especially when they play down in San Diego in those, just because the proximity and everyone hates the Dodgers. It's like this Cubs Cardinals, you just haven't seen near that much excitement, either excitement or animosity, really, in recent years, because they haven't been good at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah. So I hate the Cardinals. I hate the White Sox, and I will boo them and I will cheer against them. But it's like my hatred has kind of shifted from hating specific players to just hating the uniform and whoever's in it. You know what I mean? Like, Yadier Molina is gone. Like, some of the guys that were there forever, they're gone. Like, I just hate the Cardinals,
Yeah. Dekoff 18 says all those guys are washed up except Rizzo and Schwarber. And it's funny because going into the weekend, I was thinking, like, where's Chris Bryant? Because like he was obviously with the Giants and it's like, and then I flipped on because I got the MLB package and he's with the Rockies playing. And literally, like, I turned on the game when he was at the plate and he got, he like dumped a single against the Mets in the game. It's like, oh, Chris Bryant playing for the Rockies. But you never hear about him because of where he
plays for the Rockies. I mean, that's yep. I don't know what else to say. Yep.
I know. That's exactly it.
And, Almago's up in Detroit, not playing terribly well. And, I mean, they've all kind of just went their own way and done their own thing. And he's right. Schwarber and Rizzo are the guys that are kind of still carrying the mantle for that 2016 team. And those are the two guys, if I'm being honest, are the ones I wanted the Cubs to keep the most. Soothsayer.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. Had fun as always. We appreciate it. Hit the like button and, of course, subscribe, rate, and review. Vince, I will talk to you in a couple days.
Yes, baby. Here we go. Wednesday. All right. Can't wait.
Sounds good. Talk to everybody else mañana on IB Nation Sports Talk.